Welcome back to 2-Minute Civics. So the first standard we're going to be learning about this year is 3.1. So I'm going to just read it with you really quick and then we'll get into it.
3.1 says students will compare different forms of government. And these different forms of government that must be included are listed here.
We're going to go through and break down each of those forms of government in some different videos. I don't want to put them all in one video because that might be a lot of information, so we'll break them down into the different parts. What I'm actually really sad about is during this unit, we actually have two little projects that we do. The first one is called the Island Project, where students actually learn about the governments and then they create their own island with their own choice of what kind of government they have, what kind of economy they have, and it's really fun. Kids really love decorating their islands. Second one is called Gummy Bear Government, where students will learn about all of the governments and then they get to a bag of gummy bears and then they get to recreate what that kind of government would look like. So it's a perfect lesson for little ones at home.
Before we start learning about the different kinds of government, we really have to learn about what the difference between democracy and authoritarianism is. So we have something that's kind of like a sniff test. It's a quick rubric. You can ask yourselves 4 questions, and depending on the answers, you will find out if your government is a democracy or authoritarian.
So the 4 questions are: how do they select their leaders? The extent of their power? What are the means of ensuring obedience? What do we know about their political parties? Okay, so we're going to start with the first category. So some of the different kinds of governments you might see in a democracy: of course, a republic, which is what we have, or a constitutional monarchy. In an authoritarian government, you might see an absolute monarchy, a dictator, totalitarianism, an oligarchy, autocracy. There's many different forms of authoritarian governments. Okay, so let's start with the first one. How do they select their leaders? Well, in a democracy, leaders are chosen in free and fair elections. So that usually means that people get to vote. In an authoritarian government, the rulers usually inherit their position or they take power by force. So inherit means when they pass it from maybe a father to a son, kind of like how the kings of the past used to do, or maybe in North Korea, how that dictator passed the power down to his son. All right, next up we have is what is their extent of power? So in a democracy, the government's power is limited by a constitution and laws, and citizens' rights and freedoms are protected. But in an authoritarian government, rulers have unlimited power, government may impose an official ideology, and control all aspects of political, economic, or civic life. Okay, next one. Means of ensuring obedience. In a democracy, the government relies on rule of law. So everyone follows the law, no one is above the law. But in authoritarian government, the government relies on state control of the media, propaganda, military or police power, and terror. And then our last criteria are political parties. So in a democracy, you usually have multiple parties and they compete for power. But in an authoritarian government, power lies with a single party.